Today, we'll dive into the story of one of the most iconic bands of the 1980s, a-ha. Hailing from the cold lands of Norway, the vocalist Morten Harket, the keyboardist Magne Furuholmen, and the guitarist Pål Waaktaar-Savoy showed the world they had what it took to dominate the global charts. The big breakthrough for this trio came in 1985 with Take On Me. The song's initial version went unnoticed, but the recording and its groundbreaking rotoscoped animated music video catapulted the band to stardom. Hits like The Sun Always Shines on TV and Hunting High and Low followed, solidifying a-ha as a powerhouse in the synth-pop scene. But not everything was smooth sailing. Disputes over money and songwriting credits caused conflicts among the band members. These disagreements led to arguments and even the band's breakup in the 1990s. Magne Furuholmen, in particular, struggled with health issues due to stress. However, the story of a-ha didn't end there. The band reunited years later for a tour, proving that despite their past issues, their musical connection remained strong. I invite you to dive with me into this incredible story with even more details. And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Without further ado, let's get started. The story of a-ha began to take shape in the early 1970s on the streets of Mangledu, Oslo, Norway's capital, where two neighboring boys, Magne Furuholmen and Pål Waaktaar-Savoy, started exploring music. Inspired by their family's musical backgrounds, Magne's father was a trumpeter and orchestra leader, while Paul's parents were classical music enthusiasts. They began experimenting with simple instruments like recorders. As they grew, they transitioned to more complex instruments such as guitars and synthesizers, supported by an amplifier that belonged to Magne's father. It's worth noting that Magne's father tragically died in a plane crash in 1969. An event indirectly connecting their future bandmate, Morten Harket, who witnessed the aftermath with his brother while returning from a vacation in southern Norway. As teenagers, Magne and Pål formed bands, including the notable Bridges, which drew inspiration from the rock of the 60s and 70s, particularly bands like The Doors. They even released a self-funded album called Fackeltog in 1980. Which was initially rejected by critics and audiences, but later became a collector's item. Meanwhile, Morten Harket, growing up in Asker, a municipality southwest of Oslo, had been involved in music from a young age. During elementary school, he joined a Christian youth group, influenced by his parents, who were very active in the church. There, Morten made friends who admired his leadership and artistic talents, unaware of the bullying he endured as a child. In high school, he found it hard to focus on his studies because his mind was often elsewhere. A high grade in Christianity inspired him to consider studying theology later in life. Before that, he worked as a nursing assistant and, in the summer of 1980, joined the military service. In 1978, Morten formed his own garage band called Laila Anseps, and 2 years later, he became the lead singer of Saudia Blue, a band that played blues and soul and performed regularly on weekends. He met Magne at a charity event for victims of the war in Afghanistan, and they quickly became friends. When Bridges disbanded in 1981 after recording a second album, Vocalist, which would only be released decades later, Magne and Pål decided to try their luck in London, inspired by the new wave movement and synth-pop music. However, after 6 unsuccessful months, they returned to Norway to form a new band. In March 2023, Morten told Big Issue magazine that it was Magne who reached out to ask if he would like to join them. What caught his attention the most was that, at the time, neither Magne nor Pål even knew he could sing or play an instrument, which Morten found very intriguing. At first, Pål assumed he would be the lead vocalist, and even considered having Morten play drums. Morten, on the other hand, was open to any role, but felt his place was as the lead singer, something he believed would naturally fall into place over time. In 1982, they started writing songs together at Pål's family country house. They decided to focus on the synth-pop style, creating memorable melodies and hooks. Some of the songs they wrote during that time included Take On Me and Living a Boy's Adventure Tale, which would later feature on their debut album. It was during this period that Morten suggested the name a-ha, inspired by a note he saw in one of Pål's notebooks, full of lyrics and ideas influenced by the Norwegian poet Gunvor Hofmo, Nature and Love. In early 1983, the trio took their demos to London, seeking a record deal but facing repeated rejections. According to Morten, they did this because Norway didn't offer a conducive environment for a band's success. Magne, for his part, described their home country as a cultural desert in terms of pop music. Speaking to Music Radar, he praised London. We were flummoxed by the sheer magnitude of popular culture in London at the time. I think, looking back, you can see how fertile musically that period was. And we just had this romantic idea where we were going to be international pop stars and we needed to be in London. After a few months of unsuccessful attempts, Magne and Morten returned to Norway to work in a hospital and save money for new recordings. It didn't take long before they went back to England, renting a studio in South London to try again. Pål stated in The Swing of Things that coming from Norway, they felt they had only one chance to succeed in the music scene, so they worked hard to create a sound that would appeal to the market. In the studio run by John Ratcliffe, who, along with industry veteran Terry Slater, was impressed by their music, a-ha finally found support. Terry helped them secure a contract with Warner Brothers Records, which invested heavily in developing the trio. Living in a modest apartment near the studio, the situation was tough. Morten described it to The Guardian in May of 2016. In Forest Hill, southeast London, we had mice inside and rats outside. The flat had a strange vibe. We started painting one of the walls, and within minutes this gooey substance came out, like out of boils. They popped and brown liquid seeped out. I've yet to understand what on earth that was. To get some heat, we had to keep the electric oven on. The hob would glow red, and there'd be a gassy smell that made us a little concerned. We were gulping gas. In June 1984, the guys left this apartment and began recording their debut album at Eel Pie Recording Studios with the producer Tony Mansfield. Tony focused on rhythms, leaving out several melodic tracks from the demos. Fascinated by keyboards, synthesizers, and drum machines, Magne and Pål played a key role in defining the album's sound, which also included acoustic elements. During this time, Morten immersed himself in London's club scene, frequenting famous spots like Camden Palace and establishments in Soho. Often photographed by paparazzi and posing for tourists, he was already being treated as a pop star. In the fall of 1984, a-ha released the first version of Take On Me, a song originally written during the Bridges era. The song received little airplay, and Warner Brothers, which had invested heavily in the band, was dissatisfied with the results. A music video was even produced for this version, but was only released after the single was pulled from the market. After the initial failure, Take On Me was re-recorded in the spring of 1985 with producer Alan Tarney, allowing Pål and Magne more control over the sound. Despite the re-recording, the song didn't immediately take off in England. In Norway, the next single, Love Is Reason, was re-released but made little impact. The turning point for a-ha came with the decision to focus on the United States and the choice of film producer Steve Barron to create a new music video for Take On Me. Steve, known for directing major 1980s videos like Michael Jackson's Billie Jean and Madonna's Burning Up, used the technique of rotoscoping, which combines animation with live-action footage. The short film, featuring black and white animation and the actress Bunty Bailey, was groundbreaking. In October 1985, Take On Me reached the top of the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States and climbed to second place on the UK charts, while also hitting #1 in 13 other countries. The debut album, Hunting High and Low, released in October 1985 and was well received. Pål emerged as the trio's primary songwriter. The album reached second place on the UK album charts, number 15 in the US, and topped the charts in Norway and Sweden. The next single, The Sun Always Shines on TV, released in December 1985 and had a more symphonic tone than Take On Me. Although it didn't replicate the same success in the US, it became the group's first and only single to reach #1 on the UK charts and performed strongly in other European countries. Other singles from the album, Train of Thought and Hunting High and Low, the latter dedicated by Paul to his then-girlfriend and future wife, Lauren Savoy, were released with moderate success. a-ha quickly established itself as Norway's most famous musical group, garnering significant media attention both nationally and internationally. Teen and music magazines often featured Morten or all three members on their covers. Fan clubs were created, TV specials and books about the trio were released, and they received hundreds of thousands of fan letters within just a few months. The music video for Take On Me won 6 awards at the MTV Music Video Awards in 1986, cementing a-ha as a dominant force on the international music scene.
a-ha, Take On Me.
All right. Hollywood Henderson.
Although the band was already world famous for their albums, singles, music videos, and promotions, they had yet to perform major live shows. Their few performances had been on TV programs, often lip-synced. a-ha's first live concert took place on June 3, 1986 in Perth, Australia. This event marked the beginning of a 9-month tour that spanned 25 countries across 5 continents, including the United States and Japan, with a total of around 150 shows. Magne summarized the spirit of the time with the phrase, "We want the world and we want it now." While Hunting High and Low was enjoying success, Paul was already planning songs for the next album. In a 1986 interview with the BBC, he revealed that the new work would reflect more of his true artistic intentions. Released in September 1986, the album Scoundrel Days signaled a shift in style, with I've Been Losing You indicating a lean toward rock rather than the earlier synthpop. The album was a success in Norway, reaching #1, and it secured the 2nd spot on the UK charts. Scoundrel Days is considered one of Norway's best pop albums, with Manhattan's skyline showcasing the powerful collaboration between Paul and Magne. After an intense tour and their first shows in Norway in 1987, the band composed the theme song The Living Daylights for the James Bond film released that year. The 3rd album, Stay on These Roads, released in 1988, came amidst ongoing tours and promotional efforts, reaching the top 5 on European album charts. However, Magne described the album as difficult to record, and Paul called it weak, highlighting the band's exhaustion from their relentless cycle of travel. In their 4th album, East of the Sun, West of the Moon, 1990, a-ha opted for a more organic sound, using fewer drum machines and synthesizers. After a break from promotional activities and touring, the band returned with a fresh approach and renewed inspiration from The Doors, particularly evident in the song Early Morning. In January 1991, a-ha made history by performing at the newly inaugurated Oslo Spectrum, and shortly after at the Maracana Stadium during Rock in Rio, where they played for 198,000 paying spectators. The music video for Early Morning captured this monumental performance.
Your hopes up way too high. Living to find you are one. Now they stay on me like you do. Out of the field, never gonna get no better, babe. That's the girl that you needed to ride. She said, sure, we can change, though we know we should.
The first phase of a-ha was marked by internal conflicts. As early as 1986, Magne told the BBC, somewhat lightly, that the differences between the band members complemented each other. The journalist Jan Omdahl, in the biography The Swing of Things, noted that within a-ha there were 3 leaders, each believing they knew what was best. A recurring issue was the distribution of royalties and songwriting credits, as Paul, being the primary composer, received a larger share of the revenue. The 2021 documentary a-ha the Movie reveals more about the band's internal disputes. Paul commented that their initial goal was clear. Only the strongest songs would make it onto their debut album. However, with the success of Hunting High and Low, the dynamics within the trio began to shift. 5 years after that success, it became evident that each member wanted to focus more on their own compositions. Magne, on the other hand, stated that with a-ha the Movie, they chose to be honest. In a-ha the Movie, well, I thought, I'll say what I want. After all, we're just human. The 3 of us have known each other for more than 40 years. We basically grew up together. What's the point in pretending it's all a bed of roses? In fact, I even think we held back in the movie. My only criticism of the film would be that it focuses too much on personal matters and too little on the music. We never claimed to be best friends. In 1999, after a meeting with record executives, Magne was driving home when he felt overwhelming drowsiness, nearly passing out, and narrowly avoiding an accident. He was later hospitalized due to episodes of atrial fibrillation, a type of heart arrhythmia. Magne later acknowledged that the tensions within the band had taken a toll on his health. Eventually, Magne and Morten requested a more balanced distribution of revenue, which Paul agreed to during one of the band's reconciliations. Despite these challenges, the members often found ways to come back together. In his 2017 biography, Paul referred to Magne and Morten as his closest friends. In 1991, a-ha released the compilation Headlines and Deadlines, the hits of a-ha, after which the band's activity slowed down. During this time, Paul had already moved to New York, while Morten and Magne remained in Norway. In the fall of 1992, the trio reunited to record a new album titled Memorial Beach. Released in June 1993, this work continued the trend of a more acoustic, live-recorded sound. However, sales were disappointing, and Warner began to focus on promoting Morten as a solo artist. The song Shapes That Go Together, written for the Lillehammer Olympics, became the official anthem of the 1994 Paralympic Games. That year also marked a pause in the band's activities, with Shapes That Go Together being a-ha's last recording for 6 years. The members pursued their own creative paths. Morten explored his solo career, releasing albums. Paul found success with his band Savoy, which he formed with his wife, and Magne expanded his activities as a visual artist and composer of soundtracks. Despite their separate journeys, the trio reunited in public once again. In December 1998, a-ha took the stage for a special event, the Nobel Peace Prize concert in Norway. They performed the new song Summer Moved On and the classic The Sun Always Shines on TV. This performance, originally planned as a one-off event, was met with such enthusiasm from the audience that it inspired the band to resume their activities together, reigniting the trio's creative spark. The comeback album Minor Earth, Major Sky was released in July 2000 and achieved chart success in Norway and Germany. Musically, the album followed the style of Memorial Beach, but incorporated more symphonic elements and a digital production. The single Summer Moved On became a major hit on Norwegian radio, and a new version of Velvet, originally released by Savoy, gained attention for its music video set in a morgue. In 2002, the album Lifelines maintained the success of Minor Earth, Major Sky and brought new hits for a-ha, notably Lifelines and Forever Not Yours. At this stage, the band's dynamic resembled that of 3 solo artists collaborating. Paul, focused on his family in New York and solo projects, contributed less, leaving Morten and Magne responsible for most of the material. That same year, a-ha embarked on their largest tour in years, performing 44 shows across 18 countries. In 2003, they released the live album How Can I Sleep With Your Voice in My Head. In 2005, after a quiet period, they released Analog. The title track reached the UK Top 10, their first to do so since Stay on These Roads, The following years saw sporadic appearances and performances at festivals. In October 2009, a-ha announced they would disband after a farewell tour, which concluded in December 2010 at the Oslo Spectrum Arena. They reunited in 2011 for a memorial concert honoring the victims of the terrorist attacks in Norway. 4 years later, in 2015, they announced a reunion show at Rock in Rio, which led to the recording of the album Cast in Steel. In 2017, they recorded an acoustic MTV Unplugged album, followed by a tour in 2018. In September 2021, the documentary a-ha the Movie premiered. And in October 2022, they released the album True North. It's clear they will never truly part ways, and they will surely return soon, much to the delight of their fans.
Skin is like velvet, but here the sun never shone that day from an early stage. Doctors walk. What do you see? What do you know? One side, forever not yours. Hold me tight now. Hold me tight as can. Every thought you never dared to think, every mood you...
a-ha is, without a doubt, Norway's most successful musical group, with worldwide album sales surpassing 100 million. The impact of the band's international success was deeply felt by the Norwegian population and the country's music industry, shifting perceptions and raising expectations. Take On Me, a-ha's most famous pop song, reached a massive global audience, making the band Norway's top cultural ambassadors for a time. While often regarded as a one-hit wonder in the United States, the band maintains a stronger status in the UK and across Europe. World-renowned artists, including Christina Aguilera, Coldplay, A1, and U2, have covered a-ha's songs.
Could have seen her as I watched the slip.
The Take On Me music video, which has surpassed 1 billion views on YouTube and 2 billion streams on Spotify, is considered one of the most iconic of all time, further solidifying a-ha's enduring legacy in pop culture. Today, Morten Harket is 65 years old, Magne Furuholmen is 62, and Pål Waaktaar-Savoy is 63. How time flies, doesn't it? Did you already know a-ha's story? Were you familiar with the songs of this iconic band? Let us know in the comments. I'd love to read your thoughts. And if you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Thank you for staying with me until the end, and see you next week.